Erev Tov, everyone. Make sure I got everything on that I want to have on. Okay, Erev Tov, everyone. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be not Zeta Story Corner, but the Old Rabbis Discuss. Our new show, which we started last week with myself and Rabbi Ancel Salamon, which we will be bringing him in just momentarily. This week, I actually put up in the on the announcement that we were going to continue on with our discussion of Ashkenazi and Sefardi customs and minhag and so on. But we've decided, because it's our show and we can do that, we decided we were going to kind of switch gears, and we are going to talk about Tahara, the rituals of death and burial, and then we will get back into Sephardic and Ashkenazi customs regarding Pesach when we are done with that. Before we bring Rabbi in, we'll see who's in the chat room. We have Donald, we have Kelsey Lynn, we have Marshall, and we have Simon, and more to come. So let me bring in Rabbi Ancel and get him up here. Okay, you are on.
But you're not on.
I am on, yeah.
I don't see your face.
I don't have my camera onto the Skype. I can fix that real quick.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, it's not like you don't know what I look like.
I'd rather look at your face than not. You're on now.
Okay, so. Okay.
Shalom, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about the Haro, which is a ritual of honoring a deceased according to Jewish law. But before I go into it, I am going to read the glossary of words that I'm going to be using tonight. If you have a question, please.
Well, before you do that, why don't you give them a little bit of background on your background as far as Tahara goes?
I was in charge of the Hebra Kadisha and for the state of Miami, but mainly in Miami, Fort Lauderdale. In the 22 years that I was involved with the Hebra Kadisha, probably done between 3,000 and 4,000 taharas, and men only. Men are not allowed to do taharas on women, but women are allowed to do men if there is not enough men available to do the tahara. It's a very honorable thing to do. It's called the Hebra Kadisha. It's a holy society. We do not get paid for it because it is considered, in the Hebrew word, it's called Chesed Shel Emet. It's the truest act of kindness. So
because there's no way you can expect to be rewarded.
Sorry?
Because there's no way you can expect to be rewarded for the person that you're actually performing it for.
No, he's gone to God. So I consider myself fairly knowledgeable on doing a tahara. I have written the procedures for the tahara because everybody, Chabad has one rule, the Breslev have one rule, the other one has rules, nobody agrees with their rules. So I wrote the rules, general rules for everybody. If they wanted to follow, that's fine. If they want to follow their rules, there's not much difference. The prayers are the same. But they call it, they're different. So.
Well, just to kind of jump back into Ashkenazi and Sephardic minhag and stuff like that. I mean, the Hebra Kadesha typically in the Sephardic tradition. It's a position that's handed down from generation to generation, from father to son, and from mother to daughter, and so on and so forth for generations. Same thing in the Ashkenazic.
Hebrew Kadisha was always a Sephardic tradition. It was copied by the Ashkenazis because of the ritual, which is honoring a deceased. And the Torah says, that you should go the way you came. And when you're born, you come out, they wash you, they clean you, they wrap you, and the same thing is the same reason you should go. It's the money that people spend on suits, shirts, ties, brand new shoes. The money, the thousands of dollars that are used to bring flowers at a Jewish, it's not allowed, or it shouldn't be, but people do. That money should go for charity. That should go for tzedakah. It
Yeah,
will do more good to people who cannot afford rent or food, especially in Florida. You buy a bouquet of flowers for $200 or $300. The sun will take care of those flowers in 1 hour.
yeah, that's an interesting concept in the Goyisher world. The
Yeah.
whole idea of sending flowers and stuff, and in our tradition, Ashkenazic and Sephardi, I mean
Yeah.
Judaism altogether, it's basically you send flowers when it's a happy occasion. You wouldn't send flowers to a funeral because it's basically saying, "Hey, I'm glad you're dead."
It's the same thing when I tell people that they shouldn't be wearing black at a funeral. They look at me like I'm crazy. You're not supposed to wear black at a funeral. The funeral is not for the deceased. It's for the living.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wear something in white or something even with floral, it's okay. But
You're breaking up.
thousands upon thousands of dollars on one funeral. What for?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay,
we'll start.
so you wanted to talk about some of the terms that you're going to use.
Yes. Some of the terms that I'm going to use tonight, first of all, Aron is coffin or a casket. And like I said, Chesed Shalemet is the truest act of kindness. The Hebrew Kadisha is a burial society. It's literally called a holy society. The Halvasha is the dressing of the deceased for in burial garments. Kavod Hamet or Kavod Hameta is respect of the dead, male and female. Therefore, Met is for a man, Meta is for a female. Asking Mechila is asking forgiveness. Because when we finish the Tahara, we ask forgiveness from the deceased. Because you may have made a mistake, a small mistake, you ask forgiveness. If we made a mistake, please forgive us. If we did it right, please bless us. Shomrim are the people that sit with the deceased from after the Tahara until he is buried. He is not supposed to leave the body, never alone. Tachrichim are the shrouds. And there's a few pieces of the shroud that I will go through. And Tahara means purification, specifically the ritual of pouring of cold, fresh water on the deceased, which means he is being clean. So the ritual of Tahara is when we walk into the room, we first of all we will wash our hands with no gloves. It's pure cold water, and there's no blessing. After that, we each give each other tasks. We check the equipment, we check the supplies, we check the casket. If it doesn't have holes at the bottom, then we make holes to the bottom of the casket. And the reason why we make holes to the casket is that the body should be close to the ground, to the earth. After that, one of the person will light a yahrzeit candle and will give the Hebrew name of the person. I light this candle in honor of this and this person. Another person will open up the coffin, make sure that the coffin is correct, make sure that there is a cushion that is part of the equipment, because the head of the deceased should be laying on a small white cushion. It's filled with straw. Another person will open up the tachrichim and he will take out the sovev. The sovev is just like a white bed sheet that will eventually wrap the deceased totally before the lid is put on.
Now, in the Western world, we use an aron or a casket, but in the Middle East, where there's very little wood,
yeah, they're buried right on the ground.
Now, I've actually heard that in the Muslim world, they actually pour honey on the body when they bury it.
You know the reason why?
Yeah, to hurry the decomposition. It draws bugs and insects to the body.
It attracts. Yeah. So once the sovev is spread over the coffin, we put down the talit. Next, so now we are going to put the shroud pieces that we are going to dress the deceased in order. First is the pants, and the pants are always closed at the bottom. Then, next to the pants is the undershirt. Next to the undershirt is the kittel, which is the long coat, which I have one.
Very similar to what we wear on Yom Kippur.
Kippur.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Which
that's
is actually,
I have one, you have one.
Yeah, which is actually
the God wants us, we'll be buried in it.
Exactly. That's exactly what the purpose of the kittel is to remind us of that.
Yeah. Then there's a face cover, and there's a head cover. It could be a bonnet or it could be a kippah. And there are ties. There are different lengths. One for around the ankles, for each ankle, and one around the waist. Before we start with the tahara, we recite 3 prayers in the presence of the deceased. One is the prayer for mechila, for forgiveness. One is the prayer for the chevra, which is Ana Hashem. And the prayer of compassion, Ribono Shel Olam. They have 3 reasons. One, I explained, we ask forgiveness in case we made a mistake or we forgot something. The prayer for the chevra, that God should bless us for the job that we do, because, like I said, we don't accept, we never accept payment for that. And 3 is a prayer of compassion. So now we're done with the general outline and procedures of what we are supposed to be doing. So now we approach the deceased, who is covered. We recite the prayer of uncovering the deceased. So we check the whole body. If there's any bandages, tubing, or other obstructions, they are removed.
Unless it's going to cause fluids to leak from the body, right?
What we usually do is, on the metal table, we have a plastic bag
Mm-hmm.
that the maid lies on, just in case. We removed basically everything because we were shown how to do it. And if there's any fluids, because that bag goes with the goes inside the coffin
Right.
at the end of the heart. We remove any jewelry and save it for the family. For a lady, we remove all the fingernail polish and we clean under the
Mm-hmm.
fingernails. Like I said, if there's blood, it's buried with the body. Bodily waste is discarded. So now we prepare for the rechita, the actual washing or cleansing of the body. First of all, we will fill 3 buckets of cold water, and also we will have 2 other buckets or 3 buckets as much as it's necessary with water it's lukewarm water with a little bit of soap, and we start washing the body. We will assign each member a part. Some member will be assigned to hold the head of the body so it doesn't move while we turn the body back and forth so we can wash the back of the body. One member will be responsible for the top part of the body. One member will be responsible for the middle part, and one member will be responsible for the legs.
Now, there's a certain order that those things get washed in, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we use a cloth and warm water with a little bit of soap, and it's in the following order: head and neck, eyes, mouth, the right upper arm, lower arm, hand, the right upper trunk,
Still there, or did we lose you? Okay, Rabbi's audio cut out on us, which happens. I mean, he's in the Dominican Republic, so this kind of happens from time to time. But as I say, it basically starts from the top of the body, goes down the right side, and then the left side. We were also the idea of the three buckets of water. The requirement is 3 kav of water, and those are poured in a continuous fashion. However, that is if you do not have a mikvah. Some places, we've lost Rabbi completely. Okay. Let's get him back on here. If I can, I'm trying to find where to answer it. There, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so we lost you when you were talking about the order of the washing of the body, and let's see. Let me get my video back up here. I lost my camera somehow. Get that back up. There we go. I think it's the Skype one that kind of
You
went
want me
crazy.
to do it over again?
No. Just give me a second. I will get it. Okay, let's see. I'll get that down there, and I want to move it up here, and there we go. Okay, now we can. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of crazy. Anyway, so you were saying that you were talking about washing the upper arm, the lower arm, the hand, and then the
The private parts, then you do the right thigh, leg, and foot, left upper arm, lower arm, hand, left upper trunk, lower trunk, left thigh, leg, and then the foot. Then we turn the body over, it stays sideways, and we wash the back of the body. After it's completed, we remove that sheet that's wet and replace it with a dry sheet.
Mm-hmm. Now, Donald has a question. He says that if you have a left-handed person, do you change the start? And do you change to start on the right side? I think you always start on the right side, don't you?
Always done the right side.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So now, once the washing is done, we will remove our gloves. We wash our hands with soap and water for cleanliness. And again, ritually with cold water, right, left, right, left, right, left, and without a blessing. And we put on our gloves, fresh gloves again. So now the actual Tahara begins. Since I said we fill in 3 buckets of cold, clean water, and we place it at the head of the deceased.
You know, the actual requirement is 3 kav, right?
Correct.
Now,
Which is basically 3 buckets of water.
Yeah. Now, not everybody does the 3 buckets. Some people actually have a mikvah for doing that.
Yeah, I was gonna get into, but with the 3 buckets, basically what you're doing is one person picks up the first bucket and starts at the head, and he starts pouring slowly, going from the head down until he almost reaches the end of the water. That the next person picks up the second bucket, and starts pouring the cold water uninterrupted. When the second bucket is almost finished, the third bucket is started, and it cannot be broken. If the second bucket finishes and he hasn't started to pour the 3 buckets, they have to start over again. It must be a continual.
Has to be a
pouring.
continual flow. Yeah.
Some places can afford to build a mikvah, and we do the same thing with the net. When we dip the net, because we put it flat on a board, and the board is lifted with the net, and he is dipped 3 times in the mikvah. It's the same thing, except it's easier because it's done mechanically.
Right. Yeah. I
During
actually
the
have
pouring,
a video of that where they're actually showing the process. They're using a mannequin to do it, but it really, does. Maybe we'll play that next week. We'll see.
oh, so during the tahara, when it's poured, if it's a woman, we will say it 3 times. Toharat he, that she is pure. If it's for a man, it's tahor hu, he is pure. And we say it 3 times. After the 3 buckets are poured, we start drying the body completely. We comb the hair, we make sure the toenails are cut, we make sure the fingernails are cut and clean. We make sure that the back end of the body is clean, and we put a plug so that the shroud is not dirty. So, and we start dressing. We recite the prayers for dressing in the following order. We put on the head cover first. Second, we will put on the pants. We put on the undershirt, the kittel, the belt around the kittel with bows in shape of shins, of the letter shin, tie the pants at the ankles, and we put on the face cover.
Mhm.
We then move the body prepared into the coffin. We wrap the body in the talus, but we remove one of the tzitzit to make it not kosher.
Now
Until I
there's
take
a
the
couple
body.
of different customs on that, right?
I'm
Now
sorry?
there's a couple of different customs on that. The Tahara kit actually has a talit in it, correct?
No,
Okay, I
we
thought
never
that,
had. No, we never had. Usually, the person who passed away, usually the family will bring his own talus.
and usually it's the talis that he wore daily.
Yes,
Yeah.
if he doesn't have one, there are talasim available. What I used to do, I used to go to different synagogues. I used to check all the talasim in the shul, and some of them that were not kosher, I
Hmm.
used to take them with me, so we had an empty supply of, of talit in case there wasn't one. We were never short of a talis.
Okay, so what did you do when you came on somebody who was tattooed?
Jewish law says that somebody who has a tattoo is not all there, so tahar is allowed to be done. Whether it's Sephardic or if it's Ashkenazi, tahar is allowed to be done. They say that the person mentally was not there having a tattoo.
Yeah, because any Jew in his right mind would not have a tattoo.
Yeah. So after, so once the talus and the soles are around the mat, we will put pottery, pieces of pottery shards over the eyes and over the mouth. I see no evil, I speak no evil. Just in case they used to say, just in case you go from the gun, that you shouldn't tell a lie, so your mouth is going to be closed.
So
It's not
pottery?
Jewish law, it's a tradition.
Why a pottery shard?
I'm sorry.
Why a pottery shard?
In the olden days, I have no real answer why pottery, but in the olden days, and I was in my town in Romania and I watched the funeral when I was a young kid, there was the poorest man in town was given a pottery jar and he would walk around to the people and they would give him some coins, money, because he was a poor man. So, but because he asked for money during a funeral, his job was to break that jar and to put the pottery around the man's mouth and the eyes. I should check. I was never told the reason why. Do you know?
Now, actually, I don't. I kind of assumed that it might have to do with, when you brought a sacrifice to the temple, and that and you ate it in the temple precincts. You usually did it in a clay jar, and at the when you were finished with it, you broke the jar.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like I said that I saw at the funeral. The poorest guy would walk around with this jar, and people would put coins as for tzedakah.
Mm-hmm.
And once the person was put inside the grave, he would actually jump inside the grave and put the pottery. This was in my town. We did it while we were in the prep room. We would put
Yeah.
also we used to sprinkle sand from Israel
Right.
on the total body. It was just a small bag, and it used to say because they say all Jews should be buried in Jerusalem.
Right.
So by pouring some sand from Israel, God considers that person as being buried in Israel.
Right. Right. Marilyn has joined us, and Olga has joined us. So we got two more in the room.
Okay. So then, with all the members, we recite the priestly blessing together. We close the coffin and we place the Mogen David at the feet of the coffin, while still in the presence of the deceased. We recite the prayer, like I said, the prayer for Mechila after the Tahara, and the prayer for the Chevra Kadishan after the Tahara.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do a Mishaberach prayer. Some people don't, but we used to do the Mishaberach.
It's more minhag than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
once we've done that, before we leave the room, we cannot walk out of the room forwards. We walk the room backwards, so we face the deceased, because that would be dishonor for us to give our back to the deceased. And we recite the prayer of peace, which is Ose Shalom. And we depart in silence. One of the biggest rules during the Tahara, and this is very, very important, we do not and we are not allowed to talk to each other.
mm-hmm.
And basically, this is what a Tahara is. Any questions?
Let's see what we have in the chat room. Marilyn says that her mother had a Hasidic funeral.
Uh-huh.
So did her brother, who died. Hey, yeah, that's right. Her brother did die fairly recently. He was Hasidic. Marilyn's actually in Canada. So, and yeah, I make her cringe every Wednesday night when I kind of massacre my way through Old French. So let's see. Donald says some Jewish cemeteries will not allow tattoos.
I'm sorry?
Donald said some Jewish cemeteries will not allow tattoos.
It may be no, because I did quite a few taharas for because they were members of Chabad, and they had some tattoos, and they were buried in the Chabad section. So maybe in another city. I've never heard, because it says all rabbis agree that people who have their body mutilated because the body doesn't belong to them are not all there mentally, so therefore they are forgiven, and you should do a tahar on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done many. I'm not going to say that I haven't. I've done many.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. That a
I've
cemetery
done
refused
many,
to.
but very carefully. I've done very many taharas where the man died of AIDS.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of a cemetery refusing somebody a burial because of a tattoo.
Nowadays, I don't know if you're aware of it, and I know it's in Canada, because it happened that somebody made a mistake, and because there are cemeteries in Canada, well, not 100% Orthodox, there are mausoleums that they buried a non-Jew in the Jewish section. And that caused a big ruckus. So now, if you want to buy a plot in a Jewish cemetery in Canada, you must prove without a doubt that you are a Jew. Otherwise, they will not sell you a plot.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
I have heard of instances where a person committed suicide.
Yeah,
He was buried in the Jewish cemetery, but in the back section of, somewhere close to the fence. You're supposed to, but some cemeteries follow the rule. But what are you going to do if the family has a family plot and he already has one plot? What are you going to do?
right. Well, I mean, that kind of goes along with the tattoo. I mean, that any Jew that would commit suicide couldn't possibly be in their right mind.
Yeah, that's why you're allowed to do it. That's why, if you because you ask for the coroner's papers. So if he committed suicide, you know he wasn't all there. So
Mm-hmm.
Judaism, like I said, Jewish law, you can bend some of the rules. You can't break them, but you can bend them. So they allow a person who committed suicide to have a tahara.
Right.
It's the same thing. A person who died of AIDS, he wasn't straight, unfortunately, but that's the way it is. But he's still allowed to have a tahara.
Hmm. So,
Is it? Here's my question: is it halakhically allowed
is it halakhically allowed to what?
to do a tahara on a person who died of AIDS?
Well, yeah, because you can get AIDS from any number of ways. Um,
Let's stop. Let's forget about blood transfusion.
Forget about what?
Let's forget about a blood transfusion.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
Let's,
there people can.
but let's consider halakhic. But we're talking, so we're grown up, so we can talk.
Yeah.
What about the person who is gay? Is it halakhically allowed for you to do a tahara?
I would have to say yes, because I mean, if we go into the Talmud, into Tractate of Vote, where it talks about judge every man towards righteousness.
Amen to that. Yes, you are allowed to do it. There's a lot of even Rabbi Yosef said it was okay.
Who did?
Yes, it's it's something that even person they say that the same way they say that the person who commits suicide is not normal. It's being in Judaism they consider for tahara purposes that that person was not normal because he wasn't following normal rules. So the
Right.
other thing, what Ovadia Yosef was saying
I mean,
is that
it would be that, yeah. I mean, you could, even the same thing as, what, what if the guy wasn't Shomer Shabbos? Would you still give
exactly,
him? Would you still
of
give him a
course,
tahar?
and most of them are not. But the thing is,
Yeah,
what he was saying is that we are humans and we don't judge. We are not allowed to judge each other. Let him go to Hashem and let God who's going to judge him.
that's right. Yeah, only
So
one may judge alone.
correct. Also, here's a question for the people. When you lose a parent, how long should you say Kaddish?
Ah, we'll see what that.
Anybody?
Well, it takes a few minutes. You got to remember that when we
That's
say
okay.
something and there's a 12-second delay before somebody actually hears it.
Okay.
So we'll um, see what comes back on the chat room here. Um, Nothing yet. We'll
Okay,
see.
well, we can talk about it. Most people will know. For a mother and father, you say Kaddish for 1 year. Well, 11 months and 1 day is considered a
Right.
year. What about brothers and sisters?
Well, wait a minute. Let's back up here. Why 11 months and 1 day? Why not 12?
Sephardics do
But
12 months.
no, they
Ashkenazi,
don't.
especially Chabad, they do 11 months and 1 day. They say that 1 day counts toward 30 days. They have no reason why.
Well,
Ashken,
the reason is that they say that the body or the person's soul will go through Gehenna for if the most evil person in the world
we'll go for 1 year.
will go for 1 year.
Yeah.
So again, judging everybody towards righteousness, we never go a whole year on the for the
For the Kaddish.
for the Kaddish, you know, and then every year after that, on the anniversary.
For a brother and sister, we say Kaddish for
It's 30 days.
30 days.
Yeah.
What about a baby that's born and Chas v'sholem, it passes away before its
For its 8th day?
before its 8th day?
Yeah, that's yeah, I've never run across that before. I don't know, to tell you the truth.
I have seen cases. I've never attended, but I have seen cases where they actually did the Brit Milah on the baby.
Mm-hmm.
They gave the baby a Hebrew name,
Yeah.
and they said Kaddish for 30 days. I've never attended one. This is just hearsay.
Yeah, now I've heard about the child who died before 8 days, having Brit Milad done.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't know about the saying the Kaddish for 30 days.
Yeah. Here's
Interesting.
another. Okay, so a couple are married, and unfortunately, he loses his wife. He buries his wife. So after 1 year, he gets married again.
Mm-hmm.
Is that gentleman allowed to visit the grave of his first wife?
I would have to say yes.
No.
No. Oh.
No.
And why is that?
Because he's disrespecting his second wife.
Ah.
No.
Uh,
And that is both in Ashkenazi and Sefardi. You're not allowed to.
uh-huh.
Or they say you shouldn't.
Oh,
Do
okay.
people do it? Of course they do. But Orthodox people, they don't. They never will. Because it's disrespecting your second wife. So
Yeah. Okay, we're at our
so
halfway point.
so now we go to cemetery.
Well, hang on. Let's let's hang on here. We're at our halfway point. Let's let's take our 6 minute break
Okay.
and give the people in the chat room a chance to ask any questions that they have, and then when we come back, we'll answer those questions, and then we'll go to the cemetery.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on mute,
Okay.
and it's nice having the power to be able to turn people off like that, Anyway, so we are going to take our break right now, and when we return, we'll answer any questions that come up in the chat room, and we will continue on with the rituals for death and burial and the cemetery. And stay tuned. We'll be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
Turn on the right microphone. There we go. Okay. So we are back. And we are going to continue our discussion on the Tahara and the rituals of death and burial with myself and Rabbi Ancel. Let me bring Rabbi Ancel back on, and we'll unmute him first. Okay, let's see if we can get his. There we go. Okay, so we are back now.
Okay, so I'm going to give some examples of the prayers that we say, and I'm going to start with the prayers when we dress the deceased, because it comes from Isaiah, and it says, "And he shall be attired in a linen headdress, and linen breeches shall be upon his flesh. He shall don a holy linen tunic, and he shall be girded in a linen sash. These are the garments of holiness. And you shall bathe your flesh in water and put them on. And may God of nurturance give you compassion."
Yeah,
Once you finish with the dressing, there's a prayer for allowing you to move the meta or the mace into the casket. And you say it all together. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May God's face lift it unto you and give you peace. The next you will say the prayer for putting the shards on the eyes and on the mouth, and the sprinkling over the afar, the sand on the names. And you will say, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. Next, you will ask forgiveness from the deceased. We ask Mahila for any indignity that we have done with our hands, despite the loving care and concern that we have exercised during this Tahara. If we have made a mistake, please forgive us. If we have done everything correctly, please bless us. So the last blessing is the blessing for completing the Tahara and closing the casket. Creator of the universe, we have just completed our act of Gemilut Chesed for this deceased. We thank you for the strength and the courage to perform this mitzvah. We appreciate this sacred fellowship and cherish the bond that has brought us together this evening. And the Tahara is complete. Usually we escort the met or the meta into the fridge, because the burial will be the next day, unless the Tahara was done in the morning. So therefore, there's no need to, because the burial will be the same day.
Yeah, now I want to back up. I want to back up for a minute.
I'm sorry. A lot of times it stays in the fridge because there's some loved ones who live far away, and some come from Israel, some come from Los Angeles to Miami. So the deceased may stay in the fridge for one day because it's better to be like this, and then the next day would be the burial.
Now, I just want to back up for a minute. Well, number one, I want to say, Marilyn, I'm not ignoring your question. I think Rabbi is going to get to that, and I want to wait till he has the chance to actually address it before we get to your question. The other thing is when the when the tahara, the cleaning, the cleansing of the body, and all that is done, isn't it you're not supposed to actually stand right at the head of the met?
No, no. There's a person when you do the tahara and you're washing the body. There's one person. And it's a very important job because the head is on a plastic, and then the head is higher than the body. And if you move it, you don't want. And it's happened a couple of times, and I actually asked that person to leave the room because the head fell off the plastic, and it's a metal table, and the head hit the metal table, and it wasn't a good feeling. So I said, if you cannot do this job, you cannot be careful, then just please leave the room. But no, you don't stand at the head of the deceased.
Now, why is that? Why
It's
is that?
disrespectful.
Okay, so what I had heard was because the soul does not leave the body until the first kaddish is said, and that the neshama actually resides at the head of the met.
Okay, I may flip out somebody, and I may flip out you. Avi and I did at the Haro on a Saturday night. There was two rabbi studies. I stayed in one, and he stayed in the other, and he was saying the prayers, and he went to the back, and he was making some coffee so we don't fall asleep while we do the prayers. I went to the rabbi study, which was about, maybe 50, 60 feet away. I got to the room, and there was a fog in the room. I thought I was going to pass out. It was so cold, I couldn't go into the room. And I saw a face. I don't know whose face. And you know that I don't drink and I don't do drugs. And the only thing that came to my mind to say is, I'm here to pray. I'm not here to hurt anybody. That face disappeared, and the room went back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
I know for sure that was a soul. And sometimes I would sit in the room and I felt a weight on my back. And I know there are souls, and I know the soul does not rest till burial. Until that, we're going to go through now the burial. Until that body is buried, the
Right.
soul roams around because it has not found the final resting place. That's why they call it. So now we go out to the burial ground, and we follow there's people who are carrying the casket, and we follow the casket behind. So the casket is put inside the ground. Uh, I may say a few words because I'm doing the burial. There's some people who like to say, like parents or children like to talk about their parents, and they say a few words about their life. But you cannot say Kaddish. Why?
Because it's not in the ground yet.
Sorry?
Because it hasn't been interred yet.
No. The casket is in the ground.
And it's been covered?
Uh-huh. You cannot say the Kaddish if you see any piece of the casket.
Right.
It has to be totally,
Right.
100% covered. And when because you will have extra ground because of the casket picks up
Right.
a lot of the space. You have to outline the actual grave, the length and the width, and when you can see an actual grave, that's when you're allowed to say that.
Yeah. Now,
Now, so
when you're
service is over.
well, when you're taking the body to the grave, you pause 7 times on the way to the grave, correct?
Number 7 is the most, 7 and 13 are the most important numbers in Judaism. It has to do with the 7 days of creation. Sheva Berachot,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the holidays are 7 days. You stop 7 times for that reason. Now, when you leave the cemetery, what is the custom?
Ah, and this goes to what Marilyn was talking about. Yeah,
Okay.
the custom is, well, the custom today. Well, that no, I'm sorry. It would be. I'm thinking about after the memorial is set, but the custom is to wash the hands.
To what?
Wash the hands when leaving.
If there is, usually people go to their residences and wash their hands. At Star of David, they never had by the coffin. Is you went to the funeral home and you washed your hands.
At
But
the
before you do
at the
that, when
cemetery
you're
here.
on the ground, what is the custom? The custom is to rip a blade of grass and to throw it behind you. Why?
Right. I remember that, and I don't remember why.
The reason why is you're throwing a blade of grass and you say, I've been here, you have not to God, you stay here, and I go ahead, my life is still. So you throw behind what was left there, and your life, you go on, and you're alive. So that's the custom.
See, at the cemetery here, Machpelah, here in where I live, there are actually faucets throughout the cemetery, specifically so people can, and with a laver attached to it, so people can specifically wash their hands before they actually leave the cemetery.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I have never seen it, but I know when I finished the service that I would go to Star of David and I would wash my hands with cold water. You shouldn't leave a cemetery because it's unclean.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's a question: are you allowed to visit the cemetery on Shabbos?
No,
What?
because it's a festival.
What about days in between holidays?
On Chol HaMoed, yeah, I believe you're allowed to.
Because you're allowed to do a funeral.
Right.
Are you allowed to do a funeral on the second day of Rosh Hashanah?
I just read this not too long ago. On the second day, I believe yes.
Hmm?
I believe yes.
Uh-huh. You're right. Because here, this is why we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, because we don't actually know when it is. In Israel, it's 1 day. That's it.
Right. Well, that's because yeah.
So what did Marilyn want to know?
Oh, sure. After the year has gone,
Yeah.
and you set the memorial,
Yes.
and when you go to the cemetery after that, the custom is to leave a stone on the headstone.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and her question was, she said that I have 3 little rocks I picked up off the ground in Jerusalem. Can I take them to the grave with me, or does it have to be sand? No, you can actually
No, she
take
can. She
the
can.
stones.
Does she know the reason why we put a stone?
Well, I can tell you why we do it now and what we used to do.
Okay.
Okay, we do it now. Supposedly, we do it now to represent that somebody has come to the grave.
Okay.
Now, the old tradition, the way it originally was that people would come to the cemetery, they would visit the grave, and they would leave a few coins on the headstone. And then in the evening, the poor people, the widows, the orphans would come into the cemetery and they would collect up those coins. And because they didn't know who was leaving tzedakah for them, they would pray for the person whose headstone that the coins were on. Therefore, the dead could continue giving tzedakah even after they passed.
Correct.
How you like that?
Correct. Also, there was a doctor that was my best friend in Miami. I mean, if I called him 4 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning and I said I don't feel well, he will come dressed in his pajamas to see you. That's a good person he was. He was so smart. Unfortunately, he was addicted to hydrocodone.
Mm.
And we used to go to shul together. Shabbos, we used to walk to the synagogue. One day he took too many and he passed away, and I went to his house. I had to break the door down in the bathroom because he passed out in the bathroom. I did the Tahara, but I left Miami towards the Dominican. That was probably 8 years after he had passed away. But yet, I could never, I tried so many times to go to his grave, I couldn't go.
Uh-huh.
I just, to see a person with that much knowledge, family man with 4 children, I just couldn't go. And I used to go with some friends. Says, aren't you going to see Richard? I said, no. I couldn't go. My feet would actually stop.
Yeah.
And he would donate, he would give money, he was just an exceptional, and he was a doctor. He should have known better. And this is why it puzzles me.
Well, a lot of doctors should know better, but there's a lot of doctors that get addicted to that stuff.
It puzzled me for a long time. Now, when you do an unveiling, what is the unveiling? It's done. You can do it before the year, but traditionally it's done at the 1 year anniversary.
Right.
They put a cloth on top of the stone,
Mm-hmm.
and the family and the rabbi goes there, and he will say a few prayers, and they will uncover the stone and they will read the name of the deceased, and everybody will put a rock.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a moneymaker for a lot of rabbis. I never took any money for that because it is the way it is. But it's a moneymaker because the rabbi would give the family his business card. He already had their names and their telephone number. And believe me, a week before or 2 weeks before it was time, they would get on the phone. You know, it's time for the anniversary. No, it's time. To me, that's a rabbi that's in business to be a rabbi, not a rabbi.
Okay.
So I did the unveiling. If they wanted to do, I would say, if you want to make a donation, You go to Star of David inside the office, you give them the money and tell them to whom and why and your name. But I would never. I got paid for the. I got paid for the funeral. I got paid for sitting for the deceased. But I think that's enough, you know.
Yeah.
But a lot of rabbis made a lot. $500 for 10 minutes. I I I think it's a bit fun, but
Okay, so Marilyn has a clarification.
okay.
She says that no, it's when I'm dead. Can I take them with me? The 3 stones from Jerusalem. No, you can't, right?
Once you place it, you place it.
Well, what she means is that rather than have sand from Israel,
Yeah.
could she use the 3 stones instead?
Can she use what kind of stone?
They're just 3 stones that she picked up off of the street in Jerusalem.
And to put it where?
In the Arum. Instead of the sand.
To put it in the coffin or on the eyes and the mouth?
No, just in the coffin. You know, when you put the dirt in the coffin.
Yeah. The reason, yeah, of course you can, but the reason why you put some of the sand inside the coffin, and then you also put some sand once the coffin is lowered. You also you open up a bag of this little sand. It's just a small package,
Right.
and you give each member of the family to pour some of the sand on top of the coffin.
Right.
Just the meaning is that sand is holy sand. What they do is they, because there's been a lot of people who have passed away. If the sand was just sand from the Mount of Olives, there would be no Mount of Olives. So
Right,
what they do
right.
is they take the sand from the Mediterranean, they place it on the Mount of Olives for a year, and then they bag it. So by that, it makes the sand holy.
So her question though is can she use the 3 stones that she brought from Jerusalem instead of the sand?
It's a tough question for me to answer. I've never seen it done, but I see nothing wrong with it. But then, because I
Well,
would say,
you know,
I would
I
say
kind of
yes.
have to.
I would say yes for the simple reason is that you will have to put sand on top of the coffin when it's in its place in the hole.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she can put the 3 stones in the coffin, especially they're from Israel.
Yeah. Okay, Marilyn, you got your answer. You can have your 3 stones in the coffin instead of the sand in the coffin, because the
But she
sand
will have to pour some sand on the
right,
coffin while the coffin is not covered yet
right,
inside the hole. Sand from Israel must be poured because it says that by doing that, God considers that deceased as being buried in Israel.
right.
Do the 3 stones signify that? I can't say yes and I can't say no. I don't know. I can check that out, but I don't see anything. She definitely is allowed to put him in there. Also, it's a Ashkenazi tradition. It's not a Sephardi tradition. Is that a lot of Orthodox people bring their used books. They
Oh yeah.
bring their used talashim. They bring their used tefillin. A lot of holy books, and we bury them with the deceased. We will put some in the coffin, and we will put some in the ground.
Right. Right. In the Sephardic tradition, they put it in a geneza.
Yeah.
Which is basically the Dead Sea Scrolls that they found in the caves up there. They were actually a geneza. That's what they were put there for. As they were put there, they weren't put there to hide them. They were put there because they were either not used or they were pasul.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Basically, that's it. I don't know if you have any questions. I know I finished a little bit early.
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness that we did have the Geneza in the Middle East
Yeah, there's
because
a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we had piles of the stuff. That's why I said we had enough collation for the net for the deceased
mhm,
to wrap in. So if the deceased didn't have one of his own, the funeral home had a brand new talation, but they would charge money. So why get the family to pay money when we have them and we can give them for free?
right, right. Yeah, and then the whole thing is that I okay some Jews like myself have more than one talit. Okay, I have one that I wear every day. I have one that I wear on Shabbat, and then I have one that I wear on festivals and stuff like that. But for me, if when my time comes, maybe I my position is I want to live one day longer than Methuselah. 969 years in one day. But when I do go, I'm supposed to be buried in the one that I wore every day.
It should be the one every day because it's used most of the time.
That's right.
So what do you do with the other two?
The other two,
Yeah,
they go to my sons.
exactly. If not, you donate them to to a
Right.
synagogue.
Yep.
If you have sons, you give them to your sons. If your son has grandchildren, you give one to your grandchild. Put it away and say, hey, by the way, that's grandpa's dollars. So there's always things that can be used by somebody else,
Yeah.
especially if you have family.
Yeah. Colleen Holtzinger has joined us, and well, she probably joined us a while ago, but she just put in the Geneza in Cairo was incredible. I got to thank Colleen because she is the one that actually sent me the book on the Cairo Geneza. I found it absolutely fascinating. Um, that that Cairo Geneza, they actually found letters from Maimonides in it. You know, and yeah, it's very interesting things that they found in the Geneza. If you get a chance to read the book, you should. Um, that's for the people in the chat room. Rabbi, I know you got plenty to keep you busy, so but
Any other questions?
let's see. Checking the chat room. No, that doesn't seem to be any more questions in there. The Aron that the person is put into. Is anything significant about that Aron?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The Aron, the coffin.
Yeah.
Anything specific about that?
Well, the rule is that it should be just a plain wooden casket. Um, I've been to Orthodox funerals where two or three people jump in and rip the bottom out of the casket, which is, and it's fine. It's okay. A lot of the times we used to drill holes in the casket so it would
Mm-hmm.
be close to the ground. There's many minhags, but
Do you do is do
I
you
have seen
well when they build the
caskets
coffin?
from
Well, what?
$400 for a plain pine casket. That's
Yeah.
which most people should be buried in. To people buying $30,000 casket made out of brass, and inside there's um, a safety locker where the person can put his money and his jewelry in. And I thought it was funny.
The Well, the traditional coffin. Well, actually, traditionally there wouldn't be a coffin, but I mean, going into Europe where wood was plentiful and stuff like that, the traditional coffin doesn't have any nails or screws or anything in it.
Not allowed to.
Right.
And inside the coffin, before you put the soldiers and the towels on, there is what do you call it? There's hay, there's dry grass,
Mm-hmm.
so the body can lay on it. Uh, no nails, no metal, nothing.
Right. It just fits together. It's kind
The
of
reason why is because metal doesn't disintegrate; it lasts for a long time. Wood goes quickly, and that's what it's supposed to be. The body is supposed to disintegrate very, very fast because it's not honorable, or to have a body last so long because of the decomposition. It's
well,
not a nice
yeah.
thing.
That's hence why we don't embalm.
Okay, here's a question: when are you allowed to remove a deceased, a Jewish person? There are only two conditions. What are they?
When you're allowed to move one,
Yes, because the law is you once buried, you're not allowed to move a mace.
yeah, I seem
But
to
there are
remember. I
two
seem
instances
to
where
remember
you
this discussion coming up when they were talking about moving Rabbi Nachman of Breslov from Uman to Israel.
That's one of the reasons. If you want to move someone, a loved one, whether he's been buried for 10 years or 20 years, or they're just bones. If you want to move that remains to Israel, you're allowed to open. What's the other one?
That I don't know.
In case of a flood,
Oh,
where the body, especially in Miami, and it has happened, where it just, I mean, the graves were just 10 feet in water,
right.
and some sections, because the sections are a little bit lower, it will not dry out so fast. So you somehow are allowed to move to a higher or dry ground. That's the only time.
Yeah. Yeah. Marilyn says morbid discussion, but fascinating.
I'm sorry?
I said, Marilyn put in the chat room, she said, morbid discussion, but fascinating.
Well, I figured we get it out of the way and leave it alone. But
Well,
I believe
I think it's a good idea. I think that's something we don't think about it until it's too late. By the time we need the information, we don't have it. So it's better to have it now, so that when you actually need the information, at least you've gotten a briefing on it.
tell me something. Here's another question. A person dies, and in the will, a person says, I have an old car. It's my love of my car. I want to be buried in it. Is he allowed to, he or she allowed to be buried in it?
As far as I know, no, they aren't.
Well, here's a case, and I had a big argument with a Chabad rabbi. I was sitting for someone, and a lady walked in the afternoon, and it was kind of a quiet day because sometimes there's no burials that day. And she came over and she said, Hi, are you a rabbi? I said, Yes. He says, I just lost my mother. And I said, But I have never made arrangements for, you know, for a person who died. Would you help me? I said, Sure. So I went inside the office, and Mark happened to be there. He's one of the funeral directors. I said, Mark, there's a lady outside. She wants to make arrangement for her mother, but she wants me to help out. He says, Do you mind? He said, No, no, come. So we went upstairs in the office, and we sat down, and well, you know how funeral directors are. So you're selling now a plot, you're selling this, you're selling that. Of
Yeah.
course, it's commission day. So he says, would you like to buy just a plot for your mother, or you want to buy family plots? And she says, no, she says, I want to buy 4 plots. Well, Mark almost fell off the chair because,
Yeah.
you know, 20% on $3,500 for each plot is good money. And so he says, well, so you are going to make it a family plot. And she looked straight at him and she said, no, it's just for my mother. I almost fell off the chair.
Uh,
Mark looked at me. I looked at him. And she said, oh no, we got somebody who's not there. And he said, 4 plots for my mother? And she said, yes. You know, why? He had to ask. I mean, she couldn't be that big. She, in her will, she had that she wanted to be buried in her 1930 or 1940 Mercedes Benz
mm-hmm.
convertible. And the Chabad rabbi allowed it. She had no tahara. She was dressed. Her everything was covered. She was strapped into her chair. They lowered her with a what do you call it?
Crane?
Yeah, with the crane, and she was buried. That's why she wanted 4 plots.
Wow.
But it's the only one that I ever seen done like that. But he allowed it.
Halakhically, it's just not
No,
allowed. I mean, it's
no,
just
because she will disintegrate, but the carbon.
yeah. She's just basically trying to take it with her. You're not allowed to do that.
Yes, I've been to some. I've been to some strange ones, but it's not something to discuss
Well,
about.
that's an interesting question because yes, okay, so that's what she wanted to have done, but are you obligated to honor it?
Well, it's the last will.
Well, yeah, but it goes against halakha, and the dead have no say in the living.
Yeah, but the Chabad rabbi had a saying it. He says, "Do it."
Yeah,
You know, it's guilt.
yeah, but I mean, still, I mean, at some point, the rights of the dead cease to exist, and if it goes against halakha, you don't have to follow what the deceased wants because they no longer have a say in the matter.
That's the whole thing because I don't want you to get me going because I've seen some stuff from Chabad that I still have nightmares about it, so I'm not going to get into it. They do what they do and let them be well, but I will not follow them. I actually wrote the Tahara rules, and they follow them, but they also add to suit them. So I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah.
I don't want to judge them. I don't want to judge anybody. Let them be well. Let them be
Okay.
healthy. But
Well, if
I
you
don't
will,
agree. I don't agree with the whole thing. So
if you will hang on, I'm going to sign off here, and then I will get back to you. And hang on, I'm going to mute you. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. I hope you got something out of our discussion tonight. Next week we will go back into Sephardic and Ashkenazim minhag and traditions relative to Pesach, because Pesach is coming and there's some very interesting differences between the two. Hope you will be with us. Don't forget that Wednesday night is the Torah study in depth with myself. We are still reading the Parsha Shemot, and Friday night, of course, is Kabbalat and Mariv Shabbat service, and Saturday morning at Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is Shachrit and Musaf, and then next Monday, right back here for the two old rabbis discuss, and we will see you then.